Hey Spuddies, it's me, Sean Shonson, a different Irish person, and since all Irish people just happen to know one another, Potato McWhiskey has asked me to talk to you guys about a little game called Civilization. And not just any Civ, we're talking about Civilization on the PlayStation 1. I know, it's very exciting. So maybe some of you out there are like me and have experienced the misfortune of growing up without a family computer. I personally didn't get my first computer until I was 14 years old, and the first game I played out of the box was Medieval Total War, and needless to say, I was very bad at it. Now, even though I missed out on a childhood of wonderful 90s computer games, thankfully I was raised on a healthy diet of console games, and for whatever reason, I always tended to gravitate towards games that initially had origins on personal computers, but then found themselves ported over to home consoles. Now, my favourite console growing up was the original Sony PlayStation, and it's a fine example of a games library that features a huge number of PC ports. In fact, it's how I first came across minigames and series synonymous with computer gaming, be it RTS games like Warcraft 2, Command & Conquer or Dune 2000, simulation titles like SimCity or Theme Hospital. You can even play adventure games like The Neverhood and Beavis and Butthead Virtual Stupidity on the PS1. Us console chumps really didn't know how good we had it. Now, of course, this was a very experimental time in game development, and while these ports were great ways for people like myself to get introduced to genres and series that I otherwise would have completely missed, you'd have a hard time arguing that the PS1 ports of these games are really worth playing nowadays, when pretty much everybody has a way to play these games as they were originally intended, and that's on a computer with a keyboard and mouse. Seriously, you go back and try to play Red Alert on a PS1 controller, it is rough. That being said though, there is one game in particular that I think has held up remarkably well over the years, and is in fact the version of the game that I always end up coming back to, even though I could very easily play it on my computer nowadays, and that's Civilization 2 on the PlayStation. Now, I know what you're thinking, obviously a turn-based game would be more suited to console play, but as far as the quality of the port itself goes, Microprose did an excellent job of adapting the full-fat Civ 2 experience over to home consoles, while also giving the game its own unique flair that makes it stand out from the PC original. So full disclosure, I'm not very good at Civilization. I understand this is the wrong audience to be a bad Civ player in front of, but just because you're a bad Civ player doesn't mean you can't have fun with it, and thankfully, I'm not here today to talk to you about how to play Civ, just about why the PS1 version of Civ 2 is pretty neat. I suppose the first thing anybody would notice are the visuals themselves. This is still unmistakably Civilization 2, but with a new, let's just call it, console aesthetic. In many ways, it looks like a really high quality 16-bit game, and I mean that in the best possible way. The map objects and character sprites just have a really charming look that I've always appreciated, and these visual changes also lend themselves to the menus and UI. Of course, everything needed to be adjusted to cater to the new joypad control schemes, but Microprose didn't half-ass anything here, redesigning it all from the ground up while making sure to keep every feature intact. Even the setup screen is brand new with this helpful statue that likes fading in and out between every option. Look at her go. The whole game just has this charming visual style running throughout it that I feel really gives this version its own identity. And when it comes to the presentation, well, we can't be forgetting about the sound effects and music either, because I know anybody who's played Civ 2 for a few extended play sessions might still hear some of these tracks in their sleep. Alright, so the default track does have the ability to drive you insane, but if you swap it over to track number 2 or 4, now there's a 2-minute loop you can build roads to. Of course, none of these fancy updates to the visuals and presentation mean a thing if the game itself doesn't play well, and while I'm certainly not saying it's comparable to the PC original, This is a surprisingly good playing game of Civ 2, all things considered. Menus are easy to access and flow well, you've got plenty of shortcuts to your buildings and units using your shoulder buttons. For a console game from '98, this very intuitive setup allows you to do pretty much anything from tax adjustments, scouting the map, or harassing your neighbors for technology in little more than a few button presses. Obviously, it will take a little bit of time to get into the swing of things when using a controller, but the slow pace of Civ games and a very helpful tutorial make the process a breeze even for Civ first-timers. And most importantly of all, the game still features all the fun FMV from the PC original. That means we get to watch one of these videos every time we build a wonder. Seriously, I just tried to build as many wonders as possible so I could show these off. I can't get enough of them. And who could forget your advisors, played by real actors and one Elvis impersonator.
I cannot let the people's spirits alone, your majesty. Assist me with some luxuries and keep the people's hearts content.
This is what you love to see. And yes, you even get the throne room minigame. It is not Civ 2 without a good throne room. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Civ 2 on the PS1 is pretty good actually. I'm not going to pretend it's any replacement for the original Civ 2, but as far as an accessible way to experience some classic Civ gameplay from the comfort of your couch, be it on original hardware, a hacked PS1 classic, or even on the go using a variety of portable Android devices, this version of Civ 2 is still a lot of fun in my opinion, and definitely worth checking out for those curious. Although be warned, I downloaded the game onto my Retroid Pocket so I could play it in bed, so on one hand I'm having the time of my life, but on the other hand I'm also now severely sleep deprived, so know what you're getting into. Also, in case you were wondering, this isn't the only version of Civ on the PS1. The other is a port of Civ 1 that only ever came out in Japan. It has been partially translated so you can play it in English if you want. Kinda. It's definitely more primitive compared to the port of Civ 2, but this version does have a ton of cheesy 90s CGI and cute little scenes every time you add to your city, so maybe it's the better game. Who's to say? Anyway, that's about it from me. I hope you had a nice time looking back at Civ on the PS1, and hopefully my abysmal gameplay didn't make you too mad, but feel free to make fun of me in the comments anyway. I can take it. Before I'd go, I'd like to say a big thank you to the man himself, Potato McWhiskey, for letting me chat with you all today. Over on my channel, you can find plenty of videos dedicated to chronicling the many weird and wonderful games released on the Sony PlayStation. I try to market my channel as long gaming videos to fall asleep to, so if you want to learn about some cool games you probably never heard of, or even just want something to put on in the background while you're taking a nap, let me tell you, I've got the channel just for you. Either way, it's been a pleasure chatting to all of you today. I've been Sean Johnson, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for watching.